Okay, and there we are live. Good day and welcome back to another episode of the Air Force Podcast. My name is Yaku, and today we have got Rivas and Venita with us from the Upsidedown. Welcome. Thanks a lot for being here today.
Thanks a lot, Jaku. No, we're glad to be here. It's something that we're looking forward to.
Uh, we've just talked before we started this recording. What is it that you actually do? Are you ghost hunters? Are you hunting the supernatural? Tell us exactly what it is that you are doing.
So, you know, the Upside Down is a paranormal investigations, research, and basically we also do a little bit of tours as well. So we try to encompass as much of the paranormal world as what we can. You'll see on our social media as well. We write articles about various locations, various haunted items. We also have our investigations where we're on there. We take on certain theories. So our essence, we are a paranormal investigation or ghost hunters. But yes, we like to cover the whole world of the weird and the wonderful and the paranormal and all that good stuff.
Okay. And then where did you start and why did you start? Where did that thing come from that is this is something we are going into, this is something we are heading into? Uh, where did that start? Did you watch a movie? How did you decide that?
So, this is kind of a weird one for me because I have, ever since I can remember, been interested in the paranormal in some way. I never had this like profound experience where I was like, oh man, I've just got to, hunt ghosts now. I remember, I still have books actually somewhere that I took out, and I'm not going to say the library because I was supposed to give them back and I never did. But I took out books from the library uh, when I was probably about 10 or 11 years old that I still have that was on ghosts and what you could get at that stage. And I think after like years and years of just watching paranormal shows, and it was still Most Haunted and Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters, I thought to myself, you know what, I want to do this. And I started a team and then that failed. And then I started another team, it failed. I joined teams. I tried every which way how that I could possibly try to do it. And then one day, I sat down with one of the original founders of the Upside Down, and we said, "Okay, let's do this." And since then, that was in 2020. Then we started the Upside Down, and basically, we've just been doing it since then. So yeah, that's my story.
Okay. And then how did you find a team? How did you build this team that you have? How did you find like-minded individuals? Somebody that wants the same things that you do, somebody that wants to explore the same things.
I went to most of the insane asylums that I could find. Left my business card there. No, so it was actually funny. Majority of the team at the moment, it was just a Facebook post, and we at that stage we put out a Facebook post, and we had quite a lot of applicants, and we sifted through the applicants, and yeah, basically, eventually we found people that at that stage we thought we could get along with and we could do this with. Venita, on the other hand, she actually runs another paranormal channel on TikTok called 14th Avenue. And she invited us to do some sort of event at Kempton Park Hospital. And that's basically where we met Vanita. And we were like, okay, do you want to join the team? And she was like, yeah, let's do this. So yeah, that's how it pretty much came about.
Okay, then Vanita, how did your journey start? Why did you want to do this kind of thing?
I think I've always liked like paranormal stories since I was like very young. But my interest in the paranormal actually started at Kempton Park Hospital. I went to visit there and I ended up with something that came home with me, and more than a year struggle later.
What was the
But then
thing
it
that
just
went home with you? Can you just clarify that for us?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. We are still debating. But it was odd things that happened afterwards, like footsteps down the hall. And for example, I would hear my mom calling me when she's not home. We would hear my dad calling us even though they're not home. One night we heard us calling my mom, even though we were sitting together and it wasn't one of us. Strange things happened during that time. So yeah, I think for a while afterwards, I was like, nope, I'm done with that. But then the interest started coming back, and I was like, but why? Why is this happening? What happened? What's going on there? So yeah.
Okay, and then what is this thing about the Kempton Hospital? What is that thing? Because it's been on a lot of TV shows. You have explored it. What is actually going on there?
You know, it's funny, and I'll give Vanita an opportunity as well because she has a very personal connection at Kenton Park Hospital. But you know what the thing is, and I think all abandoned hospitals are just amazing. There's another one that we've also investigated. I don't know. I'm not going to say the location because we don't really want people to start flooding down there and start ruining the place. But most of the abandoned hospitals, even if you look at it overseas, it's just such an attraction. It's something about it. And, if you look at Kempton's Park specifically, although there's many theories around why it closed, I don't think there's anybody that can say, you know what, without a shadow of a doubt, I have proof here in paperwork. I've got the CEO of the hospital standing next to me. This is why it closed. So there's this like mystery around it, and then you've also got the doctor that went something for like 18 or 22 years. That was a physician, a child physician, without any formal qualification whatsoever. And so then once the hospital has closed, you have this period where it almost went through. I can't even. It didn't even have security at one stage. So there were people in and out and doing what they want and looting and doing rituals. And, it's, and at the end of the day, it was a hospital. So you can imagine the amount of death and tragedy and heartbreak that actually went through that. And not to say that the paranormal is only that, but you can just imagine what sort of emotions were stirred up there. So I think, it's just this big ball of energies and theory and mystery. And I mean, the minute you walk into that place, I don't know if you've ever been to the Kempton Park Hospital, but the minute you walk into that place, you're just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is cool. And then you get later on at night where you in the pitch dark and you're standing in one of the hallways and there is absolutely no light around you, not a single living person other than the people that is with you. And you're like, okay, I can feel it now. So it's just I think it's a hospital thing. It's just a hospital thing. I think that's the pull towards it, or the intrigue about it.
Okay, and then what's your experience with it, Anita?
Yeah, I have to say the first time or after I went the first
Can I
time.
quickly
Yeah.
interrupt you? Rivas, why did you just shake your head?
Because you know what, as many times as we have tried to figure out what happened to Vanita, it's still probably one of the most chilling and what makes it so credible is it wasn't, and she says us, but what makes it so credible is it wasn't just her experiencing this. It was her mother and her sisters experiencing this. And they were experiencing things that were almost, I think, exactly the same, if not all at the same time. And we've had this conversation so many times walking through Kempton Park, and we're just like, what the hell is going on here? And then I think Vanita's mother came with us one day, and then it ended up, she told us a story that Vanita was actually in hospital at Kempton Park Hospital.
Out that day, yeah.
Yeah, so the story just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. It's like, okay, that's why I shake my head like,
Okay,
ooh.
okay. Vanita, then you continue the story. Or
Yeah,
you started from the start, actually.
Yeah, it's just the first time. After the first time, obviously, I said I'll never set foot back in that place ever again. I was like, there's no way. And my mom even told me if I ever go in again, I'm not allowed to sleep at her house for at least a week, so that whatever goes with me stays at my house. But after the second time, I don't know, I like stared at it and I just felt like this is home. I don't know how to tell you or how to explain it, but it was just, I got the sentimental feeling around the building. Because I think it opened a lot of doors in a way, and a lot of questions. I don't know, but the second time, I love that place. Like, I want to go back and again and again and again, and just try and find out what's going on there, because we don't know what it is.
Okay, and then I've seen on some of your videos that you use all kinds of like cameras, this sensors kind of stuff. What equipment do you generally take with you to these kind of locations?
Yeah, so we try. It's been a kind of a equipment box or equipment collection that we've been collecting over many. Well, I've been collecting over many years. We have thermal imaging cameras. We have night vision cameras. We have motion sensors. We have thermometers. We have sure motion alarms. We have motion lights, we have EMF detectors, we have radio frequency detectors, we have the K2, which I'm sure you've seen. We have SB7 Spirit Box. We have cat balls. Sorry, cat balls, which is also kind of like a motion. It's very popular. I'm sure everybody's seen it on all the ghost hunting shows. It's like these little motion balls that blink and light when there's when it's been actually physically moved. And we've also recently launched our own app, which we are very proud of, where we've taken everything that a cell phone can possibly do, and we've somehow manipulated it to be able to assist us on investigations and stuff like that. So, and then we also have the SLS, which is the censored light structure camera. We have the one which we run on artificial intelligence on our cell phone app, and then we have the actual genuine one, which is based on the Xbox Kinetic kit, whatever it's called. So we have various objects. We've also got the stuff like the dowsing rods, Ouija boards, the kind of more weirder stuff.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So we've got a full list of equipment.
Okay, and how did you go into the developing of the app? Did you assist with it? Did you find somebody? How did you like got everything out of a cell phone that you needed?
So I actually have one of the very first that first ghost hunting team that I tried to start back probably about 15 years ago. I started with a friend called Stefan, and Stefan and me have always had the same kind of interest in the supernatural. And one day he's actually a qualified software developer or engineer or whatever they want to call it. And we just started talking, and then that's how the app started. He's actually part of our team now as well, so he's one of our investigators as well. But that's basically how it started, and he just went through we went through pages upon pages upon pages of what exactly can this do, what a cell phone do, and that specific thing, what does it actually read, and how can you use it within a paranormal investigation. And then obviously we used sort of other apps to kind of guide us into what we wanted. So we brought out so we actually have two versions of the app. We have a very South African one that's specifically designed for South Africa, and it has languages like Xhosa, Zulu, Afrikaans, Dutch, everything like that. And then we have an international app which also incorporates a lot more languages like Spanish, French, or a German, Latin. So it was something we kind of used other apps, but then made them better.
Okay.
So that's basically how it all worked out and how it panned out.
And for what is the languages? Is it only for the user for interface, or
So
is it for something else as well?
it's called the GhostCom on our app. So basically what this does is the GhostCom, so you'll stand in a place and you'll ask a question, and the GhostCom the minute you start, you press play. It picks random words at random intervals, and then basically it will say that word. So if you say, "Hi, what is your name?" But you'll turn on the app, you'll ask the question, and then randomly this ghost, well, this app will choose a word at a random interval and put it out. So basically, what you're looking for is that chance of it actually being relevant or it making sense. So at any point or any time that you press play on this thing, it's all completely random. But there are those moments where it makes complete and total sense. And what's happening is it starts making sense one after each other. So it's not able to tell where you are, what you're doing, what question you're asking. It's just completely random chosen words. So the different languages comes in is that the way it's answering you can be in Zulu or English or Afrikaans or Portuguese or whatever the question is.
Okay. Okay, that's actually really interesting. So, where can I download the app? Can I download the app as well or not?
Yes. So what I'll actually do, maybe that's something that we can do is I will actually give you the app as well, and I'll give you 10 vouchers that you can hand out to anybody that's interested, or you can run a little competition or
Uh,
something like that
okay.
with the app.
Okay, we're gonna negotiate on that after the recording. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay.
Look, I'll give it to you, and you can do what you want with it.
Okay. Okay, so let's start at the beginning of an investigation. How do you say, okay, that is the place we're going to investigate? If there's some kind of criteria, do people reach out to you? Do you decide it yourself? How do you say, okay, I'm going there, that is what we're going to do, that is what we're going to search for? How does that work?
So you have obviously, I think, three kinds of cases. You have the ones where people are actually in trouble. Then you have ones where there's haunted. Let's say people think the place is haunted, and then you just have an historical building or a normal building. So basically, what we do is we just go out and Yanni, he's one of our investigators as well. He basically does a lot of our procurement of our buildings and things like that. So we'll just go out and we'll be like, you know what, that place is cool. Let's go investigate there. Or you know what, nobody's ever been there, but there's a good chance that it could be haunted. And the funny thing is when you walk into those buildings and you start speaking to the staff and to the people that work there, they're all like, oh yeah, no, but this happened and then this happened and we hear this and it's stuff like that. So um it's kind of very random in how we choose a location, but sometimes we have on occasion been asked to come and investigate a place. So yeah, it's very random, and it's kind of, for lack of a better word, we kind of at this point, wherever we can get into, we go. So it's that's how difficult it is to find locations. So wherever we get an opportunity, we like, okay, I'm there.
Okay. And then why do most of the investigations occur at night? Why don't you just go in the daytime? Isn't it a lot scarier at night?
We don't want to see each other. That's why we prefer in the dark. So I don't think it actually makes a difference.
Okay.
I've investigated, and we've actually done investigations in broad daylight and gotten extremely credible stuff. I don't think it makes a difference. And most of our investigations, a lot of what you don't see, it actually starts during the day, probably mid-afternoon. We're busy walking through, doing our thing, trying to investigate. So I don't think it actually makes a difference. The only thing is nighttime. You'll generally find that's when most places are closed. So if you're going to a museum or something like that, obviously you don't want people walking in and out while you're trying to do what you're trying to do. So nighttime, the places are closed. Majority of the time, you'll find the area and the building is 100 times quieter, which helps with your EVPs and your noises and stuff like that. And then, um, look, there are also the theory that, because spirits are made up of a kind of an energy, it does make it somewhat easier to see that energy at night. And I think it also, if I start, and I could probably go on for hours, but I think if I start, you have that at night, you have more of a plain background, where during the day you've got all these different details and features, so I think that kind of also plays a role. But at the end of the day, I don't think it actually makes a difference. A house is haunted in the day as haunted as it is at night. So
Okay. And then now you mentioned it's kind of consists of energies. So how do you differentiate between like a supernatural kind of thing and something that is just natural, something that is a natural energy? I don't know what kind of sources they can be. How do you see the difference? How can you balance it out?
So it's actually funny. Myself and Vanita were just having a conversation about this before we started the podcast.
Okay. Okay, great.
And it's, I think, and I think Vanita should also jump in here, but I think what happens is once you hear something, you've got to use logic. There's absolutely nothing, we you have to use logic. So if you're seeing something logically, why are you seeing something? Then you have to go to the point of where you saw that thing and like sort of look around and see, okay, what could have possibly done that? Taking into consideration your atmosphere. Do you have cars driving past? Is there maybe a security guard walking around with a torch? Is there a plug there with an electrical source? Do you have, so a logic prevails. So you've look at it as, okay, you've identified this thing logically. Why am I seeing this? And then you can even go more psychological, where it's, do I have stress in my life? Is there, was I maybe thinking in my mind, you know what, yes, I wish something would pop up there, because obviously your mind can also create these things. So I think it's a very complicated process once you've actually spotted something supernatural, and then it's a case of trying to follow that up. So once you see something, now you've got to try and get maybe an EVP, a voice recording, electronic voice recording. Then, okay, let's put motion lights there. Let's put the CCTV down there, and let's see if we actually pick up any movement. So there's a whole. It's not just, hey, I see a ghost. Done. Next one. It's there's a whole logical step to how we try, and it's called debunking. So how we try and debunk something before we present it as the paranormal.
Yes.
Because if I presented everything as the paranormal, I'd look like an idiot. So you've got to be very cautious, or not cautious, but logical.
Skeptic.
You just got to be logical.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and skeptic of the situation. And that's why we use multiple theories and multiple methods to prove whether that one situation actually happened.
Mm.
Okay, now you say you have to be skeptical, and with that, what do you think about skeptics? People that I would say write these kind of things down, say these kind of things doesn't exist, or that your evidence isn't good enough, that there isn't. How do you approach situations like that?
You know what? I think I love skeptics, because skeptics, or being skeptical, makes me work harder. So it makes me think harder, and it makes me work harder. And I always say, okay, if you want to be skeptical, that's perfect. I 100% agree with you, but give me an explanation for your skepticism. Just as much, and it's actually something that I read in one of some other ghost book, that as much as I have to explain to you why I think this is paranormal, or why I have to provide evidence as to why this is paranormal, is as much as I want you to tell me why you think it's not. So I love the skepticism. I think it's great, because it makes us work harder. It makes us pay more attention. It makes us do things more effectively. But at the same time, if you're going to tell me something is not there, tell me why. Tell me why you think it's not there, because most of the time you could say, no, but that wasn't there. And I could be like, okay, but what is your reason? No, this is my reason. But the reason that couldn't happen is because we were actually all standing this side. So it couldn't be our shadow. Or the light was down this side. So it couldn't have been a light reflection. So yeah, it's a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. And we are actually skeptic in ourselves as well.
Yeah.
So I have no issue with it, and
Okay, and then Vanita, you agree with that?
Sorry, I
Yeah,
just need to
yeah, no.
pause quickly. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, she's just getting something out of the cupboard.
No, it's perfect. No, it's perfect. Yeah, but Vanita, you can continue. I think we can
Yeah, perfect.
arrange with the editing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But no, I agree with it 100%. I think, I don't know, it's better to be skeptic than just run around thinking everything is paranormal. You know, everything that happens is what it is. I think it helps us a lot, and it creates credibility for us because we've debunked a lot of stuff that we thought, oh my gosh, I think I see something. And then it just ends up being a car driving past or, whatever. So I think it helps us as well not to kind of lose our heads, if that makes sense, like just run around calling everything paranormal. So yeah, it's a very good thing. It is.
Okay. And then, what kind of historical aspects and cultural aspects have you, I would say, debunked or have you then experienced? Because like there's a lot of things that on previous concentration camp that there's paranormal activities or some kind of rituals that has happened or anything like that. Have you experienced something like that, and have you went to investigate some of that places?
You know, it's kind of a difficult one. So we haven't yet dove into the sort of cultural sort of mysticism, like like the Tokoloshi and Pinky Pinky and those sort of things. And so that one we won't be able to give you much answers on. But when it comes to historically, I found that most investigations we usually end up a little bit more confused than what we started. you know, um, sometimes you find these things that don't necessarily make sense at the time. Like we've often been on an investigation, and then weeks after having this time to think about it, then we start realizing, like, maybe this was what happened. So, for instance, Vanita experienced something at Constitution Hill in the old fort. And historically, that the specific old fort was where they housed the white male prisoners, that specific section that we were at. But then we started getting communication from other cultures and stuff like that, and we couldn't for the life of us think why. So we started delving into, okay, who would have been maintaining the cleanliness and stuff like that. And so on one hand, I do think, it just gets very, I'm actually confused trying to tell you, because like I don't know. Like historically, I've always walked out more confused than when I've walked in. So it's I don't know. Vanita, do you have any?
You've gone on so like I'm lost.
What is the history of the Constitution Hill Fort then? What actually happened there?
The fort was commissioned by Paul Kruger to be built as a fort to protect the Boers against the British. Pretty much shortly after it was finished, the British invaded. They took over, and funny enough, ended up keeping most of the hierarchy of the Boer soldiers in the actual the imprisoned inside the fort. Eventually, when the British handed South Africa or back over to the Boers, it was turned into a prison. Then there were other sections that were built on, obviously with the segregation at that time. So there is a women's section, there is a colored section, and then there's the male section, and it basically ran for a prison, I think, up until 1982 or 81. Now, I'm not, don't quote me on that, but and then after that, it basically became a sort of a museum or a national heritage site. So But yeah, for the most part, during the time that it was a prison, it was for your more political prisoners and very common law prisoners and stuff like that. The most notorious of the prisoners that were kept there during that time was Daisy DeMelka. She was one of the prisoners, and there was Nelson Mandela was held there. And funny enough, Nelson Mandela, when he was held there, he was one of the only black prisoners to ever be kept in the white section in the infirmary. So, yeah, there's a lot of very diverse history there at Constitution Hill.
Okay, and then what did you experience when you went there?
A couple of things. But that's actually the point that I wanted to make earlier about sometimes you don't experience anything, but someone else does. But was at the isolation cells. When we went in, I didn't want to go in. I just felt uncomfortable from the beginning. But I heard a very loud breath right next to me. And I was in my own isolation cell. We all were in our own cells. So yeah, I almost ran, and then Riva said I shouldn't run, but I almost did because like really that scared me. And then after that, there was a couple of things that happened where they wanted to speak to the female. The second time, I don't know if I can say about the second one if we're still gonna.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Me and one of the other team members, Yanni, were just exploring before starting our second investigation there. And when I walked down the hall with the camera to just take some footage of the building, I heard a growl as well in the first cell. So then I just reversed, and we have that actually on footage, so
we have all of it on footage.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
I've seen that YouTube videos. I think it's the newest one that is posted. We went into the cells. That is correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Why did you went into the cells? What is the reason for that?
Because I made them. So
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, when you're in the isolation must have been a terrible place. It must have been. I could not imagine. I don't know if you ever get the opportunity to go to Constitution Hill, just going into those isolation cells and closing that door and imagining being there for 30, 60, 90 days with barely any sunlight, no communication, you know, no human or anything interaction. It must have been absolute hell. So my thought was, you know, let's go in there. Funny enough, I think we were absolutely perfect. We filled up the whole isolation section, and we each had our own cell. And I just said, okay, let's just sit here, close the doors, sit here. We put a few pieces of equipment on the outside, and we just sat there and just experience what's going on around you, what's happening. And yeah, funny enough, it yielded some pretty good results.
Okay, and then you also mentioned that it is difficult to get into the locations, to find the locations. Why would you say that is the reason? Or what is the reason for that?
So we, as South Africa, I think we're a bit very conservative sometimes. And I think that people have a very bad perception about what we're doing. A few places have told us, we don't want you here because we're specifically preserving the history of this place and we don't want that associated with it. So it's not like we're trying to put it in a bad light. So that's been a big task. And those that have allowed us the opportunity to come and meet with them and to basically present what we're doing and having this face-to-face meeting with them, generally they've changed their minds, and we've actually formed some really good relationships with people. But it's those that almost don't want to hear it straight from the start. The minute they hear paranormal or ghost hunt, it's like, no, we're not doing it. So that's been the biggest challenge, the biggest challenge.
Okay, and then how do you sleep at night?
Quite easily.
Okay.
I'm not
So
sure.
so you so you switch off. It's okay. It's another day at work. You leave it there.
Yeah,
Then you go home. Then
Yeah.
you go and sleep. Is it just like that?
it's just like
Okay. So
that.
there isn't this thing of nightmares and something creeping up on you. There's not any kind of this kind of stuff.
So yeah, we actually both have stories. So yeah, there is things that follow you home, and sometimes they can be quite. But I have this steadfast rule, and I stick to that rule no matter what the circumstance or how, let's call it, scared I get. Is I don't interact. If you're in my house, you're there. I'm over there. I will leave each other alone, kind of thing. I've had funny enough about Kempton Park. I had the most vivid dream where it was just after the very first time I investigated there, and I had this dream, and the details were so, everything was perfect, and I was walking through, and I went through the passages. I knew exactly where I was going, and it was so real to me that I actually phoned my parents and asked them, like, have I ever been at the Kempton Park Hospital? Was I ever taken there as a child or something like that? So, not really a nightmare, but it was just so real. I can't explain to you how real it was. And I've also had an encounter with where I think it was after the Cullinan Recreation Hall, and I was getting ready for bed, and oh yes, I was getting ready for bed, and we had we have a dog, and at that stage it was a puppy, and the puppy we used to take it out at night to go and do its stuff. And when I got up out of the bed, I saw that my girlfriend wasn't there, and I thought, okay, maybe she's gone to take the puppy out, and I just went to the bathroom. And when I came out of the bathroom, obviously the glow from the light was still there, and I looked towards the sliding door, and I saw a figure standing there. And I thought, oh, okay, sure, she's taking a while. So I thought nothing of it, let the puppy do its thing, and she'll eventually come back to bed. And I walked back into the room, and as I walked around the bed, and as I sort of turned my head like that, and I saw this figure running past, like on the opposite side. And I was like, what the hell is going on there? And for a minute, I kind of stood there thinking, what is this? And at that point, my girlfriend must have noticed what's going on. And she called out to me. She's like, what are you doing, from the bed? So whatever I was seeing was obviously something that probably came from where I had just been. So, but that was the craziest real thing. And then you've got Vanita's visitors there at her house that
Yeah.
like to chat with her son.
Yeah, they do. They do. Yeah. No, it's actually I'm not sure what it is or what's going on. But we've had a few incidents where
Is
a
it still
friend
going
is
on
now for a few days it's been quiet.
for a
I
few
haven't had
days?
anything. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, please continue.
The yeah, the last one was or the second to last one was actually my son saying that there's someone in the seat in front of him sitting in the car. Turning his head and looking at him. So yeah, that creeped me out. But yeah, that's about. And then the last one was the closet opened and closed by itself. So, and it was like someone was playing with it, and I thought it was my son, but it ended up not being him. So yeah.
Okay. And then what do you do in that situations? Do you just
Yeah, I'm a
continue
bit
or
different from Rivas. He likes to ignore it. I just say like, go away. Like you're not gonna be here. Like leave. Doesn't
okay.
always work, but that's my go-to.
Okay, but and you also now said it's been quiet for a few days. How long
Yeah.
has it been going on? How long?
I don't know. It's been on and off for a while. How long? When did I
Yes, I
first
actually
start?
think, and funny enough, I'm going to say this, but I feel like it's since it was that night at KPH, it's sort of been happening
Yeah,
on
on
and
and
off
off,
and on and off
small.
and on and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So maybe they're like, you back. I don't know what's
Okay.
happening, but yeah, it's but it, like I said, there would be a month or 2-3 weeks that nothing happens. Everything is back to
Yeah.
normal. There's nothing, and then small stuff would start happening. But like I said, I'm just like, okay, go away, please. So you
Okay.
can't be here.
Okay.
And then she
And
starts questioning her sanity, and then it
Yeah,
becomes
yeah.
like, Rivas, I don't know what's happening here. And it's like, oh no.
no,
Yeah.
that is my next question. The psychological impact that
Mm.
it has on you people. What is it very extreme? How do you cope with it? How do you handle this kind of thing?
I'll let Vanita go with that one.
Okay, well, I'm like the roller coaster of sanity, so I guess I'll start. But I don't know. Sometimes I do question it every single time because I think it's important. That's where the skepticism comes in again.
Mm,
Otherwise, you'll just be so you have to go and look. Was it really what I thought was happening? And again, I'm saying it when I'm not alone. If I'm alone, I'll go sit outside and wait till someone comes. Then I'll go and check out what it was. But I think most of the times you just automatically just don't go to paranormal. You go to logic first, and you're like,
yeah.
what happened to the? Why does the closet do that? Open the closet to check what's happening, and if you can't find an explanation, then, but still, you still question yourself. You still
Mm.
doubt what happened. It's just
I don't think
part of
there's
the
ever
story.
a point where you don't question what's going on. I think you
No.
always have to question what's
Mm,
going on because there is always that it's kind of a 50-50. It's
yeah.
either something psychological or something natural, or you know what, it's way out, it's paranormal. So I
Yeah.
think when you stop questioning, that's where the problem comes.
Yes.
Okay, so when you just start accepting, okay, this is paranormal, that is going to
Mm.
be a problem.
Yep.
Okay, okay. And then what kind of like ethical things is there behind investigating a site? Is there any kind of like rituals that you cannot do, or people that you cannot upset, or there's always this kind of like regulations or things in place. So does uh, investigating a site have some of that as well? Is there things you cannot breach? Please tell me more about that.
So we have a rule within the Upside Down where we don't bring up any sort of religion.
Okay.
And the reason why we do that is because that can become extremely sensitive. It can turn something into something completely something else. So we have that steadfast rule, and then basically we just let the area guide us. So with something like Sammy Marks, we weren't allowed to say certain words. We actually, funny enough, did it during the Halloween, but we weren't allowed to make it a Halloween investigation. So there is kind of things like things like that. And then obviously when you're going to, I think it's just common sense, common decency and common sense. When you go to Constitution Hill, knowing the history behind everything, and I'm by no way, shape, or form going to start trying to investigate one of the predominant leaders from the struggle. I'm not going to do that. I think it's just common sense not to do that. And when you go, I even think with it's most of the time we literally base our ethics around what the location wants from us and what they tell us and what they tell us we can't do.
Okay. And there's always ghosts in South Africa that you know about. But in Afrikaans we call it the spook of Uniondale. What's it, the ghost of Uniondale? Have you been there? Have you tried to encounter with that?
So this is one of Vanita's favorite things in the whole world.
Great,
Yeah. Yeah. I
great.
And
love. Yeah.
I drove not less than a week ago. I actually drove the road that the Uniondale was
Okay.
on, and I honestly I can't say because we've never properly investigated it. There's a lot of theories around it and stuff like that. But driving that road, I can see why people would see something like that, and on the second thing is I can see why a place like that would be haunted. So I
Okay.
really can't say. I know Vanita, you've done a lot of research into this specific
Yeah.
Uniondale.
Yeah, and except for the deer ghost, which is that one the bike
Mm,
thing that happens, the Uniondale is actually one of the most, I would say, confirmed hauntings. Like someone knows someone who's experienced this. So that's a very interesting one, and why I desperately want to go see it for myself and see if it actually happens. But you have to go in April, around about the Easter weekend, because that's when the accident happened, and that's when they say it happens. But then there's also people who say it hasn't happened for years. She's gone, she's moved on. But how do they know? It's a very I like that one. I really like that one. Yeah.
Okay. And what is the conspiracy behind that? I've watched the movie with, I think it was Adam Tas and what's the guy's name? The movie about the ghost of Union
Yeah.
Dale. And is that the correct conspiracy? Is that the correct
No.
theory behind that? Or
No.
what is the
So
actual thing then?
yeah, so the movie says that it happened on her wedding day, which is
Yeah.
not true. She was only engaged to I can't remember his name now. I'm really sorry, but she was engaged to him, and then they got into an accident, so they weren't married yet. So whether she really is in a wedding dress like they say, I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff around the movie. I think it was just loosely based on the story of Maria, which is the actual person that this happened to.
Okay. And then the ghost that people see or they perceive they are seeing, is it Maria that they are seeing? Is it the lady that they portrayed in the movie as well?
I don't know. I don't know if we'll know if it really was that lady or not. I don't know, because the description of her changes. But from the photo, I haven't had one person tell me that the photo is who they saw. That's definitely the lady that they saw. We just know that there's a lady hitchhiking on that road.
Okay. And it's always a lady. It's never like an older woman, a younger child, or maybe even a guy.
Not on this specific one, no. Not that I know of,
Okay.
no.
And is there other stories, other ghosts, other things that is?
There's
Yeah,
millions in our country.
yeah,
We have
tons and tons.
millions, yeah.
Wasn't there a thing about the Riviera Castle as well?
The what?
which one?
Sorry.
The Riviera Castle in Cape Town.
So
Oh, the Castle of Good Hope.
yeah,
think.
That's right. Is that the correct name of it? Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Wasn't there some kind of conspiracy around that as well?
Look, I'm pretty sure you would be able to find a conspiracy around every single ghost story. That's the thing, is because it's like with the skeptics. There'll always be people that are saying they felt it. Then there'll be people that are saying they believe in it, and then there'll be people saying there's absolutely no ways that it's happening. So
Yeah.
I think until a point where we can actually investigate it, that's when, well, for me, myself personally, until the point where we can actually investigate it, it's hard to say if something is real or not, because you're either judging your perception on somebody else's point of view, or you're just kind of, like we said before, you're just kind of believing the story. It's like Vanita says with the Uniondale ghost is, yes, she knows the story, she knows everything, but she'd like to experience it for herself first before, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you ever taken anybody outside of your team with you into investigations? Is there any way, like maybe somebody like me or somebody else can get to a site with you and go see the things that you are seeing, go to investigate with you, and maybe just experience a bit of the kind of stuff that you experience more frequently?
So we do have the tours. So we do run tours at both Sammy Marks and Constitution Hill. And we have, I won't say that one, but so we do have the two tours that we currently run at the moment, that are official tours for both of the museums. It's more with the tours, it's more of an experience that, come and experience and hear our stories and hear what we think and our theories and our conclusions, where we have on occasion invited people to come with us. It doesn't happen often, because it's usually when we're able to investigate more than once at a specific location.
Yeah.
Then by like the third or fourth time, we'll be like, okay, if you'd like to come with us, then you're more than welcome to do so. And that's where you would maybe experience more of what we're doing. But it's something that is conscious in our mind, that we do know that people want to do it. So we're just trying to figure out a way how to do it. But yes, definitely you can experience that kind of stuff with us in various levels. You can experience it.
Okay. And then
I'm so
what?
sorry. Let me just.
Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah,
Sorry.
It's the
fine.
little spook child.
Yeah, it's a little spook child that's opening
Maybe
the
you should
door.
go. Maybe you should go to him. Okay. The biggest question is, what is a ghost? What is the paranormal? Is it a spirit? What is it actually? What is the things that starts to communicate with the people that do the things? What is it? The definition, is there a definite conclusion? What do you think? What do you have?
For me, I think you know what? I think at this point is, I don't, if somebody's telling you an exact definition of that, I don't think they've dove quite deep enough into it, because at this stage there is so many theories, and you have the different schools of thought, like your parapsychology, you have the normal investigator, the ghostology, what they call it. You also have your skeptical school of thought. I think I think it's very complicated to try and figure out what exactly is it. But I can tell you with 100% certainty it does exist. That I can tell you. I can tell you with 100% certainty that I have experienced it on investigation, on my own, in my house. I've experienced it, but what it is, I think, is still something, and that's why the Upside Down, I also like to put the research part there, is because that's something that I think we're still trying to figure out ourselves.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a very complicated thing for us.
Okay. So there isn't actually a definite answer to what is a ghost. Okay,
No.
then how do they explain? Can we go back to the Uniondale story, that it is that specific lady that died in that car accident that you see? Is it her? How do they then explain that?
So I'll let Vanita give you the story, and then I'll give you my version of the story.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just, it's like most places. A story begins. There was an accident. It was something tragic that happened, and then one day someone sees a ghost hitchhiking, and then they make the connection. I don't necessarily say you can prove that it actually was, Maria who's standing next to the road. It could be anyone. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very hard question to actually answer. But I don't think you can 100% say that it is her that this is happening to, or that it isn't anyone else or anything else that's happening. I don't know. I don't know if you have a better way of explaining it.
I think it's all, firstly, like when it comes to actually seeing like a spirit or something like that, that isn't on camera. So let's say you're seeing it with your eyes. I think it's very much to do with your perception. So I might have a different perception of a figure that Vanita might have. So the first person to have seen this perceived it as Maria. And then what we've experienced, where we went to a very, I'm not going to say the name, but we went to a very popular or well-known haunted location where there are thousands of stories, thousands and thousands of stories. And I think, and the conclusion that we came to was that these stories have kind of made people believe. So you get told the story, told the story, told the story by hundreds of people, and then eventually you start kind of believing it and thinking it's happening. So it's not necessarily possibly even the paranormal, but I'm not saying it isn't, but it could be that, now you've seen a little glimpse of something out of your eye, and now you associate it to that story. So now you've seen it. So now the story is blown up. So it's also, I think, the perception in the beginning, but please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it isn't her, but I do think it's a lot to do with perception and with the stories that are being told. I mean, the Uniondale ghost has been told by how many thousands of people? Everybody knows about it in South Africa. So
Yeah.
the minute you see something on that road, you're automatically going to
Yes.
believe that
Yes.
that's Maria. So I think it has a lot to do with story, but until it's like investigated on a level where you're there for multiple days during April or whenever it is, doing the same thing over and over and over and
Yeah.
capturing the same sort of figure over and over, and you're actually getting details out of that figure, that's maybe when you can start looking at properly identifying
Yes.
her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then have you ever encountered with this kind of spirit that was aggressive towards you, that um, wanted to like hurt you, get I don't know. People say that they get possessed, all that kind of stories. Have you encountered anything like that?
So this one, actually another sort of rule that we have in the Upside Down is we don't refer to anything as evil or I'm going to say the word demonic or oppressive or anything like that until it, in more ways than one, has told us so. So whether it's
Yeah.
through answering on a communication device or anything like that. Personally, I I think we have had aggression shown towards us, but it's never been on a level that, okay, except for Vanita. I know with the whole KPH monster, that was a heightened level. But even with that, is I don't necessarily always believe that it's like this evil entity, because
Yeah.
if you get to a point where you have been dead for 100 years, or let's say let's take that for instance. You've been dead for 100 years. You've been in existence in this plane of energy. You don't know how to communicate with people. You can't even remember what you looked like. So logic says to me, or emotion says to me, that you would start getting a bit angry, or
Yeah.
even if you were a sort of grumpy or abrasive person, naturally, I think you would go over into the spirit world as a grumpy or abrasive person. But that doesn't, just because you're grumpy doesn't mean you're evil. So it's also to do with perception, where you're perceiving what's happening to you as evil or aggressive. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's trying to get your attention in the only way it knows how to. And yeah, so it's also, it's a very, like, most of these questions are so complicated, and I don't even think we have the answers yet. But it's there. I don't always believe what the, let's call it, the mainstream belief
Yeah.
is. I think it was very, for lack of a better word, I think the word evil and demonic has been very YouTubed at the moment. So it's become this, like, almost, if you don't have that in your headline or your title, or you're not calling whatever it is that, then you're not going to get the views. And I don't think that's the best way to approach it.
No.
Okay. Okay, and then what kind of advice would you give to people that experience like supernatural things in their home, in their workplaces? What did you say to them? How would you say to them? How should they act? How should they respond to this thing? Or yeah. I know, as you just said, you just leave them out. You don't talk to them. You don't associate with them. So, what kind of advice would you give?
So I think it's very important, and this is, I cannot stress this enough. And I think Vanita will also, because of her dealings during the time that she had that thing in her house, is be very, very, very careful about who you invite to come and help you.
Yeah.
Make sure you know who that person is. Make sure they have references. Make sure that they're not just walking in there and making the situation worse. So that's like the number one thing that I can advise people is, be very, very careful of who you trust to help you and who you invite in. And do it as you would with anything else. If you're going to get a financial advisor, you're not just going to take any Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes along. You're going to do your research. You're going to check out. Do the same. Honestly, do the same. And it's very common that people out there are actually going through things. We often get people WhatsApping us or messaging us on Facebook that they're experiencing these things. It has children involved. You can hear the pain and the anguish on these people's voices. And I have a few trusted mediums that, or spiritual advisors, or priests, or whatever denomination that you want to go into, that I trust will help in the best way possible. And these people sometimes, and the story always starts with, oh, I had this medium that came, but it just seemed to get worse. So that's why I say is always make sure you know who you're dealing with and be very careful with who you're dealing with.
Okay. And then you mentioned previously about the thing trying to communicate with you, trying to speak to you, or then there's also this voice recordings that you have. How do they talk to you? How do they speak to you? What is the kind of conversation that you have with the things? Please tell me more about that.
So we have so it's an ITC. The app is basically an ITC app, which is you ask a question and then you're waiting for a kind of random answer to make sense. I don't know. I don't really know how else to explain that. So like I mentioned, it's got the database with the words. So you ask a question, you're waiting for that relevance to start coming out. Then you've also got the SP7 Spirit Box, or those type of communication devices. Now, what this does is it scans through radio frequencies without stopping. And within that scanning, you often get words. So it scans through something like, don't take my word for the actual scientific lingo, but it scans through 300 frequencies in 1 second. So basically, it's rapidly scanning through these things. So within saying a word of like, my name is John, that would be 30 seconds. So by that time, it scanned through roughly 8,000 radio frequencies. So to get that kind of word is you've gone on multiple stations. So that's one way of communicating. So basically you stand with this SP7, you ask the question, and then through the noise while it's scanning, you'll obviously get communication back. You're looking for solid words or things like that. Then you also have the EVP, which is the electronic voice phenomenon, which is you basically take any old digital recorder, even that on your cell phone, and then you record yourself asking a question, and then in between you asking questions, there should hopefully be some kind of voice that is picked up there, which is above a frequency that we are able to hear. So I like to call it within the electronic frequency. Let's say, for instance, the sort of EMF frequency. And then we also have things like the Estes method. I don't know if you're familiar with the Estes method. Not. I'll let Benita. Do you want to explain it? It's your favorite.
So it's basically using the SP7 that we use, and then the person that goes under the Estes is also wearing a blindfold, and then we have noise cancelling headphones to prevent the person that is asking the questions, so that you can't hear what they're asking. So it just makes it more reliable that the answers that you're getting, would be better than just, oh, I think this is what they said. So now we've also added white noise, which will make it even more, just better to use, because you haven't been under it, but you can't hear anything that the other person is saying. So it actually, I don't know, that's why it's my favorite method. It's more reliable than just using it plainly. Yeah.
Okay. And then also, you don't say that a ghost was maybe a person, or it's just this kind of spirit, or what kind of connections do you think there is between the perceived afterlife, or not going into the afterlife, and being a ghost? How do you think there's a connection with that?
Yeah. Yes, you asking very you. Sure. Do we need a degree for this interview?
Okay.
So I do think it can be people, but at the same time, it might not be people. It's I don't know what the connection is. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of theories saying that obviously some kind of trauma, maybe a horrific event might have done it. But then, that being said, we've been at places where the communication is so joyful and so happy that it can't be that. So I don't know, because I wish I could tell you an honest truth, but I really don't know what the connection is. I don't know. I don't know, Vanita, do you maybe have a theory or something?
I think my theory would be, but again, it's not. I'm not saying that's facts, but that perhaps if you've had, let's say, a traumatic ending or whatever, that you could stay behind. But again, we don't know. That's why we investigating to try and get a better answer.
Okay, and because there's this thing going on, and I've heard it a few times, and it's obviously the thing about movies. Every movie has this theme of the thing that you're investigating, or the supernatural thing, is something that doesn't want to die, or has something left to sort out on Earth that they have to continue doing. Do you think there's some kind of truth in that, or do you also think this is just a mainstream thing to get more views to sort the movie, or what do you think?
I actually would agree. Hey, I do think there is some kind of truth in that. I think
Okay.
that maybe we're just lost in this limbo, trying to figure out, and maybe it happens to be that it takes you quite a long time to figure out how to work this new world that you're in. And then once you've worked it out, that's when you can essentially communicate, or interact, or actually finalize what you've been trying to finalize. So I do think there is some truth in that, definitely.
Okay. Okay. And then, have you ever experienced things like, I would say, an artifact or an object, like in the movies like that Annabelle doll? Have you experienced anything like that in South Africa? Anything uh, that is similar to that kind of things?
So Missy over there on that side, she is quite the collector of haunted dolls. So I'll let her, and then
Well,
I'll show you my little collection.
Okay.
so technically, I only have one, and yeah, the story behind it is actually quite long. But I do enjoy haunted artifacts, haunted objects. I think it's very interesting, the concept that something can attach to an object. Um, so yeah, I actually really enjoy that subject a lot.
Okay.
So I am a little bit of a freak. So most of the abandoned buildings we go to, I take a tile from every building. So I have tiles from, like, I think this was Kempton Park in the nurses' ward. This one is from the mortuary in one of the abandoned hospitals. This was from a house in Sunnyside. And I've got some more from, like, the theaters in Kempton Park and the other hospitals. And then I've got, like, a door, like a little old type of mail door that was taken from a building as well. And I've
What is
got,
that
like,
thing there in the
little things.
corner?
Say again?
That thing there in the corner, that kind of porcelain doll thingy.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the Benita. Oh, so Benita gave us that as a present before she actually joined the team. So
Okay.
that is our little mascot that we just have, that Benita made for us.
Well, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And
But yeah,
that
I
doll.
collect all sorts of random crap that I find at an investigation to basically just remind me of it. So,
Okay.
and yeah, nothing has ever come back haunted. Maybe
Okay.
it's still going to happen, but for me, it hasn't yet. So,
Okay. That what is that? A metal ball that you just had in your hand?
I
What
can't
is
even.
that?
Oh, we found this at Sunnyside. It was just the most random sort of, like, huge marble thing that we found at Sunnyside that we just kind of took. I don't know what it is. I actually have a little. I don't know if I see. I've got, like, little room numbers, and there's a chiropractor, and and oh, this was a weird one. So
Okay.
I was walking through Kempton Park and Kempton Park Hospital, and we were on the 8th floor. I think was the maternity ward, and we'd done a little investigation, and we were basically moving over to another room. And as we walked through the one room, as I entered the one door, I felt something like fall into my hand. And your automatic reaction is to like grasp it like that. And this was sitting in my hand, and I have absolutely no idea what it means, why it was there, and why it was put in my hand. No idea. And I
What
can't
is
even
that?
say it's paranormal. It was just the weirdest thing. I don't know what it is. It's like these little, like, sort of layers of metal, and it made no sense. So that was one of the weirdest and strangest things that's happened to me when it comes to objects.
Okay. And then I think there's some of my last questions is how do you handle like the media attention that you get and the kind of reporting that you get alongside with this? Because we've mentioned the skeptics, but you also have to put things out there, make it, I want to say relatable to people, but people is going to interact with you. How do you handle that kind of things? Almost like what I'm doing now.
Yeah. So we're willing to do anything. So, well, when it comes to sort of media, answer people's questions.
Just yeah.
But I think what our biggest motivator is at the moment, and this has come out of a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people saying that they don't want us in specific locations because it ruins the history and the story behind that person, is kind of educate that our biggest drive at the moment is to try and educate people into what we're doing. I mean, we're not there to conjure up something or to bring forth, the whatever. We are literally there to tell you our thoughts or our opinions based on on evidence that we collect on what we think is happening. So I think that's our biggest motivator at the moment, is trying to show people what ghost hunters are, what paranormal investigators are, what serious paranormal investigators are. That's our biggest drive. So whether it's through skepticism or through people that believe, or whatever the case is, that's what I think our drive comes from, to go on these media sort of interviews and stuff like that.
Okay. And then what is next for you? What is the next thing you want to conquer? What is the next thing that you want to investigate? What does the future hold in?
Next thing I want to investigate. I really, 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 really want to do the gallows at Pretoria, Kosi Mampuru, the CMAX prison. That's my, I would, that would be good.
Okay. Well, what is happening there?
So the stories are kind of few and far between, but the people that I have spoken to that have been there, because that was obviously the gallows. I think it's at one point, I'm I'm going to lie about the number, but I think it was in the 30s. There was approximately over 30 people that were hung and killed in one day. So, and then at some stage, that specific gallows was the only place where people were put to death in Gauteng. So every single criminal or killer or serial killer that was put to death during that sort of era that it was working was probably more than likely put to death there. Um, so, people have spoken about going up. It's called I think it's the 22 stairs to heaven, where it's the staircase leading up to the door of the gallows. And then as you open the door, there's just like these three nooses that are just hanging there in the middle of the room. And people have spoken about these like intense emotions and feelings. And the only group that I know of was probably about 20 years ago, and it was the group called Spitzer, which is basically was sort of founding ghost hunting group of South Africa. And they investigated there, and they picked up things like the nooses were moving, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there were like voices and noises, but the emotion behind it was the major thing, and that's. But I have a thing for abandoned hospitals and prisons. I just, yeah, that's my thing. So yeah, that's. Don't ask me why, but yeah.
And Benita, what is your opinion? What is your next thing, or what is the thing that you want to explore the most?
I think everyone knows, but the place that I really would love to go and investigate would be the Erasmus Castle, like 100%. So I would like to see that. There's a grave right next to the house. You know, there's all these. It's another Uniondale situation. There's so much stories about how haunted the place is that I just need to go and see it for myself and see if it is actually what they say it is.
Okay, and then I'm going to almost stop the recording now. I just want to know, where can people find you? Where can they reach out to you? Where can they go and watch your videos? You're on social media, you're on TikTok. Please just tell me where all of that kind of things are.
So we are on all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, YouTube. Some of them are more active than others, but yeah, our main ones are Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And we are under the Upsidedown Adventures, or the Upsidedown_ZA. You can find us pretty much on all the platforms with that name. And all our investigations go on all the platforms, and all our little antics and quirks we also put on all the platforms as well. So yeah, that's basically where you can find us. Go check out we've got a few episodes on YouTube over the course of the few years. So yeah, that's where you can check out our evidence and stuff like that.
Okay. And then go and watch the videos, go like, subscribe, and go follow
Yes.
the
Yes.
Upsidedown.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks
Like,
a lot
share, scare, and subscribe, man.
Okay, great. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.